good morning to you. My name is Antoinette Nirvana, and you are listening to the Body and Mind interviews. Body and Mind is your health and wellness online directory for professionals. And today, Body and Mind, I'd like to welcome Gina Holloway Mulder, and she's with voice movement therapy. Now, before we start getting into what that is, because I'm very intrigued to hear a lot more about that, I'd like to welcome you to our conversation today, Gina. How are you doing?
Hi, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, welcome. So before we get into, as I said, into what is voice movement, tell us a little bit more about you, your background. How did you get onto doing something like voice movement therapy? What led up to that?
My journey towards voice movement therapy started when I was very young. I was given the opportunity to do speech and drama classes when I was at school, and I grew a love for self-expression, for simplicity, and towards expression, and finding alternative ways of expressing the self. After university, I went on to develop my own effective communication program, which I used to deliver to various corporates. And I was also a professional choreographer and movement specialist. Those were my specialities. And those two things, voice and movement, were running in parallel. And I'd always wanted to pursue the therapy side of it because I had found through my journey that being able to express myself through voice and movement creatively was very therapeutic for me. And unfortunately, at that stage, it was just far out of my financial reach to go overseas and study such things as dance movement therapy. And so I continued on this path of doing the two things separately, movement separately and voice separately. And I did a number of other things as well. I worked in film and advertising. And eventually, I actually got a grant from the National Arts Council to work at a psychiatric rehab center where we created a movement and voice-based work with the patients at the center. And that really just underlined for me the therapeutic value of voice and movement. And it was after that, shortly after that, that I found voice movement therapy. I actually found a book at Exclusive Books and got me thinking, how do I bring my passion for movement and my passion for voice together in the therapeutic? And anyway, I wrote to the people on the back cover, and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go and study voice movement therapy in America. The process was life-changing, and it underlined to me that this was a calling, that I could help people to transform, to heal, and to grow, to help people to develop their relationships with others and with themselves through voice and movement. And that's how I started working as a voice movement therapy practitioner. I was the first South African practitioner to qualify, and I've been practicing since 2007.
Oh, wow, Gina, that's amazing. Well, now here is the invitation to thrive. So tell us a little bit more about what is integrated body movement. Sorry, I've got integrated body, mind, voice, and then tell us a bit more about the voice movement therapy and how that benefits us.
Yeah. So voice movement therapy is an expressive arts therapy. It's a psychotherapeutic process. If you think about your identity and what makes you a person, firstly, we've got the way that we think, but we've also got, and very importantly, we've got the way that we move, and we've got the way that we speak, the sound of our voice, the way we use our voice and our body to communicate ourselves and what's happening for us. That's what we use to communicate our identity and our sense of self in the world. Voice movement therapy draws on the fact that the voice, the body, and the psyche are integrated, and you actually cannot separate them. If you think of somebody that you know who is depressed or is having a hard time, finding life a challenge at the moment, and you think about what their voice sounds like, and you think about how that person moves, And then, as a comparison, think of somebody that you know who is really thriving, who has an abundance of energy, has a positive outlook, is successful, is manifesting their life. And think about how that person sounds and how that person moves. And if you compare those two, it becomes clear that the voice is a mirror of the psyche and the emotional self. In voice movement therapy, one of the key philosophies that we work with is the fact that the acoustic voice, and so that is the way that your voice sounds, and the metaphorical voice, which is your voice in the world, your beliefs, your opinions, your place in the world. The metaphorical voice and the acoustic voice are mirrors of each other. And so in order to help people to heal, to change, to transform, to become the person they want to be, we also need to then look at how do we help this person change the way that they are communicating themselves, communicating their sense of self and experiencing their sense of self. Is that making some sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking of all the people that I know, and even myself, knowing how I struggle sometimes to communicate, especially in confrontation scenarios. That's one of my big challenges that I have in life. So I think this is something that could really help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that, if I may use that as an example, we over the years we become quite habitual in our way of expressing ourselves. We've got certain strategies which have worked for us as far as movement and voice are concerned, and sometimes those don't always serve us. So if a person is having a chat, is finding confrontations or being assertive a challenge, as a voice movement therapy practitioner, what we would do is have a look at how is the person using their body and using their voice in that situation. Once we've identified how they're doing that, we start unpacking why they've landed up using that communication strategy, and we move towards helping them in an embodied and in voiced way find alternatives to their habitual pattern. So in that situation, we would ask questions like, well, how do you breathe in that situation when you are feeling you need to be assertive but haven't quite got there yet? We'll probably unpack that the person is experiencing a contraction in their self. They're probably not breathing very deeply. They may not have control over their breath. Exactly. So firstly, we 90% of the time, in no matter what we are helping people with, from being assertive to some terrible trauma, we need to start with breath. You cannot have your full voice if you don't have control or an understanding of how to breathe properly. Voice is created through breath. Another thing that we'd look at in that situation is, well, what are the vocal qualities that the person is using in that situation? And in voice movement therapy, we work with the idea of 10 vocal components. And everybody's voice is made up of more or less of these components. One of them is pitch. Pitch is easy to understand. We either have a high-pitched voice or a low-pitched voice or a monotonous voice. Pitch fluctuation is another one of the components. And that's where your voice is a little bit shaky. For example, if I'm really scared that my voice kind of is uncontrollably shaky. And there are 10 of these components. So in the case of helping somebody to be more assertive, we listen to the voice and find out which of these components is the person not using, which are they using, and we help them to understand how to use their voice. So coming back to this idea of the acoustic voice, along with to understand your acoustic voice, you need to have an understanding of technically and physically how to use your voice. The vocal folds do various different things to create different sounds. And I'll take the example of somebody who speaks very quietly. They've probably heard all their life, please speak up, we can't hear you. But nobody has had a look at that individual and figured out or helped them to understand what do they need to do in their body and in their voice in order to speak up. speaking up is not as simple as making your voice louder. It doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's many layers to what voice movement therapy is. Essentially, what I do is I help people to reclaim their voice. If I can just give a quick example to make clear what I mean. If you think about something in your life which upsets you or something which charges you up, it can be something that's in your life presently or something that's happened to you in the past. I can almost guarantee you that in that situation or that context or that relationship, you didn't have your full voice. So either you weren't able to say anything, or you weren't able to say exactly what you wanted to say or how you wanted to say it. Voice movement therapy is about reclaiming those parts of the self which have been silenced. Because if you did have your voice, or if you could find your voice in that situation right now, the outcome would be different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Empowerment is about having your voice.
Yeah. This is amazing. Wow. And very good, especially for young people, that if we could get this sort of sorted out at a younger age, and it would help people so much as they move into their adult life and careers and relationships and everything else. So this is really great. And as you say, we can carry on for a long time, but we already have come to the end of this conversation today. And I was just wondering, Gina, if you could please just give us details of how people can contact you and how people can have sessions with you. Is this a one-on-one physical sessions, or can they do Skype sessions? Can they do, how is well, definitely not Skype because it's movement, unless, just tell us more details about you contacting you.
Well, if anybody wants to find out more about voice movement therapy and how I work, please go to my website. It's www.voicemovementtherapy.co.za. And there's a lot of detailed information there. Or they can contact me via email, Gina, Gina, at voicemovementtherapy.co.za. Or they can call me on 084 827 8481. Sessions, I do both individual sessions and group sessions. I also do longer workshops and retreats, and towards the end of this year, kind of in August, I'll be running a 10-day training as well, which will be the foundations of voice movement therapy.
Great. And where are you based, Gina?
I'm currently based in KwaZulu-Natal, in Kloof and Hillcrest. But I consult in Johannesburg on a regular basis, and I also consult abroad. People can have Skype sessions with me, but I do need to do an assessment on whether that would be a feasible way of working for a particular person.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. And of course, if you also go to the Body and Mind website, which is www.bodyandmind.co.za, you can put in the search bar voice movement therapy. You can also download our app on your Android or iPhone, and all of our therapists and different modalities you'll be able to find on there, and just search in the app for voice movement therapy, and you can also get all the contact details of Gina in the app. Thank you today for chatting to us today, Gina.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to hear a lot more about this.
Good. I look forward to chatting. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.